Hello everyone, welcome to Maverick Citizens Food Justice podcast series called What's Eating Us? My name is Zugiso Pigoli and I'm a journalist at Maverick Citizen. Today we're discussing ultra-processed foods and the need for front-of-package labeling. Because ultra-processed foods tend to be high in salt and sugar, they have been found to be the drivers of epidemic diseases like diabetes and hypertension, not just in South Africa but across the world. This means they are the major causes of natural deaths in South Africa. Internationally, countries like Mexico, Peru, and Chile have turned to new kinds of warning labels on food to help people make better choices at the till. And it seems to be working. Now, South African scientists say it's time to do the same here. Could it work? Nutritionist Dr. Makoma Bopape, food justice experts Nzama Mbalati and Eunice Monso, and health journalist Laura Lopez Gonzalez take us through what ultra-processed foods are.
Looking at the health profile of South Africa, it has been found that diseases like diabetes, like hypertension, like cardiovascular diseases are on the increase. And this does not only exist among adults, there's evidence of this happening amongst children. So as a result, there was then a need to come up with a strategy that would assist South Africans to easily identify foods that are unhealthy. And this, of course, was done because unhealthy diets have been linked to the development of these diabetes and cardiovascular diseases, and especially ultra-processed foods, because ultra-processed foods have those added energy, added sugar, added fats, added salt, and so forth. So because the ultra-processed foods are so many in the supermarkets, if you walk into just one supermarket, you'll find there are so many ultra-processed food. It is now becoming more and more difficult for consumers to identify what is high in fat, what is high in energy. So those are some of the reasons why it has now come to the attention of researchers and also the health department.
Okay, thank you. Laura, can you sort of, through the research that you've been doing, as a layperson who is not an expert like Dr. Makoma here, can you explain sort of where we are likely to actually be, taking them in and not understanding just how bad they are for us?
Yeah, so thank you so much again, Zuki. My name is Laura Lopez Gonzalez. So ultra-processed foods, human beings have been processing food since, for centuries, right, to make it last longer or make it taste better. The ultra-processed food is kind of undergoes these really chemically heavy processes. It's really taking a wheat or a soy, right, which doesn't have a lot of market value. You can't really do a big markup on selling that sort of raw product. Companies come in, kind of manipulate chemically these foods to create really tasty but really bad for you, largely ready to eat kind of food packages or food products rather. There was some recent research in South Africa where researchers went sort of down the aisles of our major food grocery stores. 80% nearly of the packaged foods that you would find in a grocery store are ultra processed, according to this research. It was about 60% when you looked at beverages. So they're everywhere, but it's really difficult for people, including myself, to identify them. And I think that really goes to, I don't even think that, it's interesting as a journalist coming into this topic and sort of really being the average person that research kind of shows that we are as consumers. Like, I don't read nutrition labels. I can't read them very well. I buy out of habit. I take probably seconds to make the purchases that I'm making at the store. So I wanted to kind of take a step back because as part of this reporting, I went into my cupboard and I pulled out some food labels to actually start looking at what was in my cupboard. So I want to take a quick second to show you guys what I found. So this is what I pulled out of my cupboard. You can see that these nutrition labels look wildly different. The one on your left has 3 different languages, so it's English, French, Portuguese. There's different serving sizes, so if you were trying to do the calculations and you were really into doing maths, which I'm not, you would have, I think, a lot of trouble figuring out what exactly you were sort of eating. South Africa does make companies list what is in your food. There is no actual legislation, and Makoma can correct me if I'm wrong, about how these nutrition labels have to look. So when you're talking about front of package labeling, you're essentially going from an expectation that people like me are going to figure this out to figuring out something like this. This is a bottle of hot sauce that I pulled out of my cupboard. It's imported from Mexico, which just implemented recently front of package warning labels. So you'll see that it's got a big black hexagon that says that it's high in excess salt. So you're again looking at trying to make me as a consumer in the 30 minutes I'm going to spend in my grocery store, trying to interpret this versus trying to interpret something that looks like this. And this is a picture that comes from Makoma's recent research. It's really important that to know that she's kind of gone through with her colleagues to sort of road test what works for South Africans, because warning labels can be kind of culturally specific. So you can see here, the proposal that comes out of her research is really just simple warning labels. Hey, is it high in sugar? Is it high in saturated fat? High in salt? And then there's one that's not on here, and whether it contains non-sugar sweetener. And that's really because research is inconclusive about what sweetener, which is obviously put in as a substitute for sugar, especially as we continue to sort of tax sugar going forward. Companies will often substitute that sugar with that sweetener, but science doesn't really know if that sweetener is good for us in the long run, or if it really is doing a lot to sort of help us attain better health. And the reason that researchers like Makoma have identified just like those 3 or 4 things that we need to watch out for is really because they've looked at this. So this is the top 10 causes of death in 2018. Natural causes. You can see today is World TB Day. You can see that tuberculosis is the leading cause of natural death. But then quickly underneath that is diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, heart disease, hypertension. So a lot of NCDs really driving death in South Africa. And that is why researchers have suggested, listen, you're only going to be able to take in a certain amount of information, 1 to 4 sort of things. Let's pick the top kind of things that are driving disease in our country and design labels, very simple labels to help us sort of decipher that.
Thanks for that, Laura. I mean, from what you've explained, the impact of ultra processed foods actually has on people's bodies. How do they then find themselves sort of on 80% of our shelving space in supermarkets? Surely there's some sort of test that they need to go through in order to see how healthy they are for people to actually be consuming. Makoma, what have you found in your research with regards to that? How do they pass that kind of test?
Thank you, Zuki, for your question. The thing is, at the moment, what the industry provides is sort of dictated by consumers' demand. And if you look at what is happening nowadays, because of urbanization, because people are busy, because income levels are increasing, it becomes more convenient to quickly go for a packaged product, to go for something that will be ready to prepare. And as a result, then the supermarkets are now flooded with what consumers are easily able to grab a package, give to a child to go when they're going for school in their lunch boxes. So because of that is why we see the supermarkets having so much ultra-processed food. And in terms of passing the test, at the moment, because we do not have a mandatory warning label or a mandatory label that dictates to the industry what qualifies as healthy, what qualifies as unhealthy, then it becomes easy for industry to produce and to sell whatever consumers are in favor of at the moment. Hence, the need now to come up with front of pack warning label, because it is going to be based on a neutral profile system, which is a certain threshold that then informs the industry in order for your product to qualify as healthy or unhealthy. If it is above a certain threshold, then you need to label this product as either healthy or unhealthy. But at the moment, we don't have that kind of a system.
Okay. And Laura, I want to pose this to you, because what Makoma is saying is that, it's easy, it's quick, it's cheap, it tastes good. The alternative being buying things that are not easy, quick, or cheap. So how practical then is it for people to be looking at alternatives, even though knowing how bad, this food is for you?
Right. Yeah, I think when we look at any sort of social problem, whether it's like rising in like NCDs and obesity or poverty or gender-based violence, there's never like a one-off kind of like sort of magic bullet. So I think you have to always kind of look at these things in a constellation of other things that would support sort of the end goal. And certainly, cost is a huge issue for most families. I know that Chantal Witten is on the chat and call, but she's done research with mothers saying, like, listen, my choices are constrained by the fact that I cannot afford healthy food. And I know that I'm feeding my kids stuff that I don't really want to be doing. So I think that I think this is part of a solution, right? So if you're going to go and you're going to look at 2 peanut butters and one has a high in sugar warning label, and then the natural peanut butter is right next to it, you might make a better decision there, right? But I think it also has to be kind of part of a broader constellation of sort of solutions about how we make that whole food more affordable, right? Because I think people get really caught up in what is like the latest nutritional guidance. And I think like Myriad Nestle, who is a kind of an author who's unpacked this food system and ultra-processed foods, if you're into like understanding the system that is guiding or like sort of dietary choices, I'd really recommend reading her. But she kind of points out that, nutritional advice really hasn't changed in decades. It's like if you eat more whole foods, that's better for you. And it sort of works in industry's favor to kind of confuse us all the time.
Ultra-processed food is really nice. It looks good, it tastes good, but it's also, there's a convenience factor to it, so how do you answer that, to a mom who's like, but I literally have no time to come home and start cooking a healthy, nutritious meal when I can just grab something quickly and just put it on the table?
Sure. I think...
And tastes good. Tastes better than veggies.
And cheaper.
And cheaper.
Yeah.
I think the problem with that is access, right? Because the ultra-processed food is close. You've got your KFC, it's chicken lick in ranking, at the rank. That's what you find. But maybe if there were better options, like healthier options, which maybe could be tastier, also available at that very same taxi rank or wherever close by where mama passes by on her way from home to work, then maybe she could grab that instead. I think it's an options issue, access issue. So making the healthier food also accessible to everyone, Yeah, I think that's the issue, really.
Yeah, I want to push you on that, because it's easy to say we should make those options readily available. But like you're saying, at the taxi rank or wherever it is, there's often no places where you can just quickly get, the kind of healthy foods, right?
Yeah.
Also, healthy food is expensive.
Yeah.
So if the person says, well, it just does not fit my pocket, but I can grab a tin of whatever, I won't call it by name, some fish, something, and you make that for your kid, and with bread, then you're good. So how do you address those kinds of like real concerns,
So for us as healer, right, we advocating that the government must play a role in creating an enabling food environment. So that could be for instance, providing subsidies on food and nutritious food, that is, because yes, we know that food is very expensive. And one of the organizations that Nzama mentioned, the Black Sash, they were advocating for the basic income grant, right? Because we know that our people do not have money. So even if that food is available, they still need the money to be able to purchase that food. So we need the basic income grant to increase income in the household. Because I mean, a lot of the homes in South Africa in rural areas and disadvantaged areas, they run on children grant, right? Child grant. But we need so many, what about the missing, the age, the 18s to 59? They also need that income to be able to buy those food if they were to be available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I because part of what Nzame was saying with the advertising, right? You're not allowed to target kids at this age, younger than a certain age. But also what you're actually advertising is in itself harmful. So then is the question that maybe healthy food should be marketed better? Then you can target the kids?
Yeah.
Or
I can even come in. So we need a package of intervention.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a lot,
so it's not one thing. So the issue of the cost of healthy food, it's real. So you see ultra-processed food with very bad quality of nutrition, have long shelf life. It's tasty, it's filling, but not nutritious, and put us at risk of developing health conditions. So one of the things, you need a state to regulate. So it shouldn't be easy to access tobacco, right? It shouldn't be easy to access alcohol. It shouldn't be easy to access food that is not healthy. But then you need to look at real issues. How can government make the availability of food, healthy food, practical? So subsidizing some of the staple healthy food, education, particularly because we have moved away from our ancient and traditional ways of eating food. People still produce food for economic reasons. That's healthy. I'm coming from Limpopo, so in Venda you find people produce veggies and fruits, but they don't eat them. They sell them and go and buy the food that is aspirational. So education is power. It's important that we can continue to raise awareness that there's nothing wrong with eating vegetables. Eating vegetables shouldn't be associated with being poor. People should understand actually that is the food that is healthy. Then we need to look at, other barriers that are actually making healthy food inaccessible and affordable. So you need to have that social protection net. We need to also look at what are the kind of food in terms of the school nutrition program that is being provided. Is it just pap and beans? Or is it food what is in that basket? Then we need to look at very practical ways. For example, the supermarkets, they are super making a lot of profits, but there's also a lot of food that goes into wastage. So issues of food wastage, food banks, how do we revive? I think there's 3 or 4 supermarkets that are dominating the food, the retail food sales. Do we need to revive the food banks? Do we need to revive, and support small-scale farmers and those mothers that actually were selling vegetables on the street and fruits on the street? They are diminishing now because there's this huge supermarket that all of us working in middle class feel like if we want to buy, we should buy to them. It's neat. So I think all these things, I think we need to start looking at poor people, really making sure that there are subsidies, there are vouchers that they can get discount for buying healthy food. We need also to bring even the private sector, like your Discovery, right? Is this like, a middle class and privileged subsidies? Can that be extended, this healthy food that actually enables their medical aid customers to have few medical aid customers sick? Can we extend that, to ordinary people in terms of like providing financing for vouchers for people who are going to buy into supermarket too? Let's have practical ways for people to access food. Can we have healthy food reduce prices through treasury intervention in subsidizing food, staple food that is healthy? So we need to get to a point where we have those practical solutions in terms of, with the money that I have in the pocket, and really accessing healthy food. When I go to school, can we look at, procurement and tendering, right? Who are we supporting? Who's providing those meals at school? Are we still using the bigger, dominant supermarket? How do we build local economies, in terms of like making sure that wealth and entrepreneurship, particularly Black people, in particular women, have those opportunities, because that creates employment in the local community. So we need a package of intervention to address the crisis we have of lack of access to nutritious food.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of What's Eating Us. Tune in again next week when we discuss how the food and beverage industry actively skirts and dodges government regulations in order to sell people unhealthy food, with nutritionist Dr. Makoma Popape, food justice experts Nzama Mbalati and Yunus Munso, health journalist Laura Lopez Gonzalez, and health lawyer Safura Abdul Karim. My name is Zugiswa Pigoli, and I'm a journalist at Maverick Citizen.